Good afternoon and welcome to the 1 o'clock session of the 50th Annual Conference on Higher Education Computing in Kansas. If you're here for the session, Why Should Information Technology Care About Business Process Improvement? You're in the right place. I'm Nikki Barnes, and it's time to go through a few housekeeping items before we begin. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. You should be able to find a link to ask a question to the form within the chat box on YouTube. Also, this session is being recorded and it will be available on the ESU Check 2020 website shortly after the conference is over. Without further ado, here are our session presenters, Darcy Potroff and Stacy Devine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're really glad that you're here and we are excited to share with you today our session. My name is Stacy Devine. I am a benefits specialist in our Human Capital Services, which is what we call HR at Kansas State University. My background, my degree is in Management Information Systems. I also have a yellow belt in Lean Six Sigma. And I am passionate about process improvement. It is something that I've always been interested in, and the more that I work with it, the more I really enjoy it. And I'm excited to share what we've learned with you today.
And hi, I'm Darcy Potroff. I'm the Director of Application Services. I just recently was moved into this position. And before that, I was the programming director or programming supervisor over the HRIS, which is our Human Resources Information Systems area that did all the development for that system. I have a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. I also am a yellow belt in Lean Six Sigma and process improvement. Seeing inefficient processes over and over, it just really makes me sad. So being able to see processes improve is just really gets me going, and I love it. And so Stacy will start our presentation now, and we'll show what we're covering. So if you want to show our PowerPoint, that would be great. There we go. Wonderful. What we're going to be covering today is really a high level process improvement, how we go about doing process improvement. We're going to dig into the weeds a lot, just basically to show you at a high level, and also to tell you why we really would encourage your groups to do process improvement. We'll also go through some of the tools that we've used. We want you and your group to get excited about process improvement, and we're hoping to show the value of that today. We're going to walk through a journey that K-State had with a specific case study on how our human resources, human capital services group, and our information technology group work together. And through that, we strengthened our partnership. We opened up communication channels, and we really increased the understanding between all of our team members. It was a wonderful process. And as she mentioned, our moderator is going to be taking questions as we go. There'll be, you can type questions into the chat area on YouTube. And when we get through, we will be answering all the questions as time allows.
So have you ever been in a meeting and you've heard the phrase, well, that's the way we've always done it? Or have you maybe been the one that said, that's the way we've always done it? So that's something that comes up frequently when we look at process improvement. But then we also have those light bulb moments where you really see that someone has clued into what's going on or has had a revelation about something. Those light bulb moments are what we live for. We want to talk to you about our case study with how our HCS and IT teams work together. We moved from that's the way we've always done it to a lot of aha moments and really progressing into how we can maybe do things differently, which has been a very exciting journey for us. With this journey, there were several drivers to why we needed to really look at process improvement. So we had a large organizational structure change. Our human resource department moved and became human capital services with a vice president that reports directly to the president and sits on president's cabinet. So that was a major organizational structure change. And with that brought a lot of things that needed to be looked at and done differently. We also had some turnover in some key positions within our organization, within human capital services especially. We had a payroll manager with over 25 years of experience with our organization who retired, and with that, a lot of knowledge lost there. And then we also happened to have an expert resource in our IT department that was available to us. And so we had someone that could really bring us some mentorship and kind of help us get started on this journey. And when we started looking at process improvement, we identified approximately 57 processes that could use some improvement that needed to be taken a look at. And like all of us, our plates are full. That's a lot to take on. So we were really looking for how are we going to tackle these different process improvement and where were we going to find the time for that?
And knowing that we had so many processes that we really needed to take a look at and analyze, we needed to really find a framework that we could build on, one that was scalable, that we could start with every project with and take off and run. So that's what we looked for. I'm sure you guys can all find your drivers in your organizations, unless you're perfectly efficient in everything you do, which if you are, I would like to talk with you after the presentation. As we go forward, our hope is that we can show you some of these tools that you in your organization can build this scalable framework.
So we wanted to share this funny illustration with you because it really highlights some of the things that we have encountered. And when we talk about, why does everyone, but specifically IT, need to care about process improvement? You can see in the illustration, there's a couple of little Lego figures and they're struggling to push a wagon with square wheels. And there's somebody there offering up some round wheels to them. And their response is, no, thanks, we're too busy. And so it's really easy to get too busy and lose sight of what's important and what the true purpose is of what you're trying to accomplish, because we get so focused on, we just got to get this next task done. So it's really good to have a process or a framework that helps you get this perspective about your processes and how you can improve them and really help bring you out of the hustle and bustle of the everyday where you're just so busy and bring you back to not losing sight of there might be a different way to do something.
And again, we'll say, why should IT care about this? It's the business functions. A lot of times we think, well, it's the business functional offices that really need to improve their processes. But what we found is IT really needs to be involved with these. The developers, everybody, have somebody from different teams involved, because then it creates the whole view, the whole picture gets out there on this specific process that you're dealing with. And it really starts to establish a shared language between the functional business offices, and the technical sides. Adding those technical touch points really helps just complete the whole picture. What happened here with us is it avoided us getting tickets that were just, kind of thrown over the wall that said, hey, this is broken, can you please fix it? Because now we both could talk the same language. We were both looking at the process the same way and not from two different sides. So it's very important to get both IT and the business side involved. The framework that we used as we went through our processes is called Lean Six Sigma. We found the concepts, they're very easily understandable, even without formal training. Stacy and I both have our yellow belts, but it's not necessary. Although the training's really good, it just really isn't a requirement to take on this journey.
So as Darcy said, one of the things that we like about Lean Six Sigma is it is easily understandable what we have found, the concepts of it. So we appreciate that the training doesn't become a barrier for our project team members that maybe haven't had the more formalized training. So that's what makes that really good. But for today, we want to make sure that we talk just a little bit about Lean Six Sigma so you understand what that is and some of the things that we'll reference as we go through. So a quick overview of Lean Six Sigma. This is a methodology that's used to continuously improve work and processes. And it's really a combination of two different concepts. So it focuses on lean, which really focuses on reducing waste, taking out extra steps, lag time, things of that nature, waste. And then Six Sigma, which focuses on the inputs and outputs of a process and reducing variation in processes. So the formula there, Y is a function of X, really highlights, your inputs are directly impactful to your outputs. Putting that in a little bit of computer science terms, garbage in, garbage out. So really what comes into your process is going to affect what comes out of your process. So those two things together become Lean Six Sigma.
And Lean Six Sigma uses a 5-step process. And as we have here on the screen, it's an iterative process. It's never ending. So I'll go through each of the steps briefly. In the first step, you define the goal of the process. What is the goal that you're trying to do and the final goal of this process? Next, you move on to measuring. You need to measure and you need to gather data and establish a baseline or the base measurement that you're trying to get out of this process. Then we move on to analyzing that data that you find in the steps to find the root cause of the issue you're having, or several root causes of the reason this process is not efficient. To fix a problem, you need to have the complete understanding of the problem. Then we move on to improve. This focuses on making continuous improvements to find a permanent solution to your issue. After you get the root cause and you know all the components that need to be worked on, then you can start to make these improvements. Always remember, though, to test those proposed solutions to make sure they're going to be effective. And sometimes through this analyze and improve, that can become iterative in itself because you'll want to analyze, you'll make an improvement. You may have to go back and analyze a different thing to continue making several improvements at that time. Then you go on to control, which is a very important piece. This is essentially the sustaining phase, and it should prompt you to reevaluate the process on regular intervals. It wants you to help make sure that you sustain the changes that you made in this whole process. So by continuously working through the framework, you're consistently reviewing, improving the processes. This began in the automotive manufacturing business several years ago. It was with the Toyota production system. It has since moved out of just being a manufacturing methodology and has moved to be more applicable in any kind of service processes that you're doing. It's been widely accepted as one that can really help with these process improvements. And as we talked about, Stacy had talked about a little bit, the formal certification and trainings, there are certifications. They come in belts. We have a white belt, yellow, green, black, and a master black belt. Your entire team doesn't necessarily need to have all the trainings, but I would suggest you invest in it for some of your leaders. But generally, if you've got a leader who has some of the training in this, they can help lead the team and get through the process. And one way they can help do this is by using some of the tools that you can find out there. We're going to hit on some different tools that we used to help with the process in the case study that we used.
So when we talk about tools, there are different tools that are used for different purposes in process improvement and Lean Six Sigma. You'll see them throughout the DMAIC process. We're going to talk about a few that we've used specifically, but for example, if you're looking to gather process information, you might utilize a SIPOC, and that kind of shows high-level processes, summarizes the piece of a process. We're going to talk about those a little more in depth here in just a moment. You also will look at root cause analysis. So you might use a fishbone diagram to look at cause and effect and really try to see if you can figure out a root cause of an issue you're having. 5 whys is also a root cause analysis where you drill down utilizing why statements until you can get to the root cause of something. When it comes to tools, Google is your friend. So, you can look for a lot of information out there about and find different examples of ways other people have used tools and information about those. If you're looking into things, some of the terms that we would recognize would be Lean Six Sigma, DMAIC, SIPOC, process improvement, process mapping, things of that nature.
And this is one SIPOC example that we wanted to share. It's kind of a fun one. It's how to make a pizza. The acronym SIPOC stands for supplier, input, process, output, and customers. That's in the black across the top. That's the SIPOC. And what this does is it allows us to track the inputs and the outputs and see who delivers those inputs and then who consumes those outputs, who uses them. And there's variations of SIPOCs all over the place, and we want to show you some of those as we go forward. The biggest thing I want you to keep in mind that flexibility is the key to process improvement. Just please remember that.
So here's another example of a SIPOC that we have used. This is the same information from the SIPOC on the previous slide, but what we've done is we have changed up the look of it a little bit to help encourage some nonlinear thinking. So we created this out of a need for a project group we were working with that we wanted to be able to do it in a little more of a brainstorming fashion. And so we were able to take this and shake it up so that we have our process in the middle, but we were really able to just focus specifically on who are the suppliers, who are the customers, and look at those individually outside of the process. So again, it's the same kind of information, but we just created a version that worked for our project group so that we could get some of that nonlinear thinking. We also have what we call our extended SIPOC, which is really an Excel spreadsheet that we utilize, and we have created kind of a template that we can use as we work through different projects. Basically, this spreadsheet really starts with the SIPOC. In the first part of it, we've got suppliers, inputs, process, output, customer or consumer. So we're going through each of our process steps in a linear fashion here, where we're really digging into each step and gathering that detailed information. And then from there, we just kind of added on to that for a way to have additional information. Again, flexibility for what we need. So the first part of our spreadsheet has this information, and then we also have analysis tools that we've added on to it.
Sorry, I muted myself. My dog was in the room. Apologize. We added on to the SIPOC tool with this because what we found in some of our conversations with our teams is that a lot of useful information was coming out and we needed a place to capture that. We didn't want to lose it, especially around some of the, the systems that are used was very integral because, people would go, oh, I didn't know we touched that system. Or, it was a way to gather all that additional information without losing it. We use the color coding up here. We would color code the comment that was made so that we would know if it was a critical output, policies and legislation. I mean, that is one that when we have a yellow box over here, we just pretty much know we can't change that. That's a policy thing. We have to, that process has to stay the way it is because it's by policy or regulation. And you can see the other ones, but we just used the color coding. It made it easier. And it was a real visual, visual tool for us to look at. SIPOC is really part of the define and the analyze part of that to make process that we just talked about earlier.
In addition to SIPOCs, we utilize process maps. So I've got a couple examples here on the screen. They are small and not probably very readable for you on purpose because what's in the process maps is not really the focus of what we're talking about today. But what we want to show you is, again, different tools that we have utilized in different ways. So we have process maps you can see on the left side of the screen there. This is going to look a little more traditional for those of you familiar with process mapping. We base our process maps on business process mapping notation. So we try to use that formalized, but it is also, it's our version of it. So again, flexibility to make sure that we have what we need. We also have an example of what we've utilized as a data flow that kind of shows how information is flowing through different systems we have and how it comes in and out of our different systems. Again, someone familiar or trained in true process mapping and true notation would maybe cringe a little bit looking at this. But what I want to emphasize is don't be afraid to color outside of the lines. So we were working on processes with our functional group and our IT group, and we needed tools that were understandable to both of our groups. So it didn't suit us to have a really specialized process map that was only understandable to a few people. So we took that tool and then we modified it so that it was understandable by both our business people and our IT people. Again, getting back to that shared language so that everybody was on the same page. So really what we want you to understand from this part of it is don't be afraid to color outside of the lines. So now that we've talked a little bit about Lean Six Sigma and the tools that we've utilized, we want to talk to you about a specific case study and talk a little bit about our journey, our specific process. The aha moments that came out of this were really exciting and has helped get some buy-in for us on future projects that we are going to work on.
Where this started is we had a regulatory change for deductions through payroll that came down. It was regulatory, we had to do it. And what we had was our HRIS system, which is a PeopleSoft ERP. It was very heavily customized. We implemented in 1996, and we've got a lot of bolt-ons. And anytime we do upgrades, we have the potential to do thousands of retrofits because it's very heavily customized. This process was customized heavily. And so we could have just fixed it. As from a technical side, we could have went, oh yeah, let's do this and change this thing and change this database table and we get this done. But we chose not to, because we had very blurred lines and roles and responsibilities. We just didn't know. And like I said, we could have taken it and just made it happen, but we chose to do this through process improvement and try to get a handle on all those roles and responsibilities and get everybody back in their lane.
So the process that we went through, we actually had a project manager that worked with us doing the project management piece. We also had a business analyst that worked with us to work through some of the pieces. Then we had our business subject matter experts. We had our IT subject matter experts. Some of us wore, multiple hats and maybe fulfilled a couple of those roles as we did that. But what we decided was, like Darcy said, we didn't want to just fix what we had or change, what we had and shove in this new process and just make it work in what we currently had. We wanted to refocus on what did the process need to be, and also to see if we couldn't look at uncustomizing some of our process and getting back to delivered functionality. As I'm sure most of you also feel, we have a real shortage of people resources as far as having enough people to do all of the things that we would like to do. So we knew that if we could go back to the drawing board a little bit on this process and uncustomize, it would really help with our IT partners in lifting a little bit of that burden from them. So as we walked through our process, we used some of those tools that we talked about. We created SIPOCs so we could get a better understanding of really what's coming in and out of this process. We created very detailed process maps that we walked through, which was very helpful for us to be able to get all of our subject matter experts in a room, both on the business and the IT side, and really talk through that process map of this is what happens here, this is what happens here. And that's where we started to get some of those aha moments. We saw that again, both from the business and the IT side. Our IT folks being able to listen to the business subject matter experts talk about what they were trying to accomplish, they really had then great insight to be able to say, well, we can do this in the system, or this is a possibility in the system if that's what you're trying to do. So it really allowed that, that aha of, oh, we could do this differently than what we've done before, which was amazing. We also created an informal data flow diagram, which was very similar to the one I showed previously. Again, I call it informal because it is not by any stretch of the imagination probably what a true data flow diagram would be called. But what it did is it illustrated for us, these are the systems that are involved in our process. This was a payroll process that involved receiving and sending files from multiple locations, transforming that data in different spots and sending it back. So being able to really map out, here's where the information comes from, this is what happens to it when it's inside of our system, and then this is what it looks like when we send it back out of our system, was extremely helpful, not only for us, but for our IT partners. Because then we were all, again, speaking that shared language. From a business perspective, there were lots of things within our processes that I called magic. You push the button, the magic stuff happened in the computer, and then we got the thing we needed. So as you can imagine, for our IT partners, that's a little frustrating when I'm just telling you, I don't know, the magic thing broke. That's not super helpful to a programmer to be able to fix or adjust when we're talking about that. But by creating this informal data flow that I understood as a business person, that my IT partner understood from their perspective, we were able to create this shared language about what was happening in our system. So we worked through this process. It took us a while. We went through several iterations of different maps and lots of testing and different things like that. But what we came out with was amazing. This picture here actually shows, this is a picture of the wall outside of my office where I actually had shared some of the maps that we made. And you can see the little yellow peeking out at the bottom is the sticky note that I put on there with our results, because I was so excited by what came out of this project that I wanted to share it with everyone in our organization, even people that weren't involved with the process, because it was so exciting for us. So from a process improvement standpoint, we eliminated 9 process steps. We eliminated 11 extra sub-processes that were being done. We had a summer process that was basically 100% extra. In addition to regular processes that happened during payroll, we were able to put 95% of that into our regular process. So it doesn't become extra. Now we only have about 5% of that process that is extra on top of our regular processes. We would not have been able to get there if we wouldn't have taken the time to really sit down and go through the DMAIC process and really talk about defining what the problem was, doing some measurement of things, really analyzing what we needed to do, and really having that input from our IT partners as we did that. And the documentation then that we got out of it, not only is it useful for the functional and the technical folks, as I talked about, but this documentation is reusable. And the example of that is that we had, after this project had been completed, it was shortly after that, we had another issue that came up for a payroll related thing. And we were able to go back to this informal data flow diagram that we had. And because we had mapped that out, we were able to quickly identify what was causing our issue and come up with a solution to how to fix that. And we would not have been able to do that quickly had we not already had this documentation. So the time and effort that we put into this project, not only was it helpful in fixing the particular process we were working on, but it created artifacts for us that then were reusable later on, and will continue to be useful to us. And that is part of what helped us with the buy-in for our projects as well, is because people are now seeing that the effort that goes into this really does help with other things. So it's not a one and done kind of situation.
And the key takeaways we had, as you're listening to Stacy explain this process from a technical perspective, all the inefficiencies that were going on from a technical side, had we known all of that, we probably would have tried to, jump in a lot earlier, but they didn't know it could be fixed and we didn't know it was broken. So by doing this process, well, number one, you can definitely see that we accomplished removal of the square wheels. When we can change the efficiency to what we've done, we definitely have a round wheel on this process now, and it is just going very smoothly. But the communications has increased so much. We know what they're talking about. They know what we're talking about. Now, it's not two sides. We're a partnership and a team. So that stronger partnership is unbelievable. We really got away. I don't hear it like I used to. That's the way we've always done it. We've always had it this way. We broke that down in this one project and it stayed gone. There's now people think hard before they say it. And those aha moments were just amazing. There were so many people who I never realized that when I did this thing, that it touched all the way to this. And showing those maps, showing all the tools we used really brought in a lot of aha moments. This really helped to realign the functional and technical areas. It kind of put everybody back in their lane. We do this, and we're all talking together. We're in a lane, we're in a process and a team all together, but everybody has their roles now. It helped that. We used Funky Tech, is what I like to call the one person who's really out there. They're really more on the functional side, but they have that technical ability to really drive that shared language and really bridge that gap between the two sides to where we bring it all together as one team. It's also important that you look back after we're all excited. We have all these efficiencies now, but it's real important to look back and get to those lessons learned. We really wanted to and create a document with those so that you can carry it forward and not repeat any problems that you ran through. Two that we wanted to highlight, the first one being, don't jump to a solution. Technical people sometimes have a real strong desire to do this. They want to jump, oh, I know exactly how I can do this. I can fix this. But when you slow down, take that second to go through this process, it really brings in the best solution. I'm sure the solution that somebody jumped to would be okay, but it didn't get to the efficiencies that we really needed. And it wasn't looked at as one little solution. We looked at this thing as a whole process. So it took out the, oh, I can fix it, and brought around a lot of efficiencies. The second big takeaway, the lessons learned that we got out of this was just don't be afraid of coloring outside the lines. These frameworks, I mean, you can go to the training and you can learn all the frameworks, but don't let them define you. Let them guide you. Do color outside the lines. Do what you need to. Make it appropriate for the process team that you're working with. You'll really learn to be fluid and agile and not really formal and rigid. That kind of is an off-putter. So it's better just to be real agile and work with the tools that you can find, color outside the lines, and let it all work for the team. You'll realize as you go, because you want this reusable documentation as well. And a lot of times people go, oh no, documentation. It really isn't a 4-letter word. You don't have to put it in specialized and rigid format. Just get it on paper. You can formalize it later. You can put it up to standards later, but get it on paper so that you have it. We also used a decision document, and this was very important. It kept track of all the decisions that you made so that you didn't have to go back. You have a meeting this week and then next week come back and rehash it. I don't know if anybody's gone through that, but we certainly found that to be an issue. So use a decision document so that you can track those decisions it made and always be able to go back and say, hey, here it is. But they're very fluid and changeable if you find that you need to change them, but have it there so you know what you're doing. The methodologies and tools that we utilized were really inexpensive and very easily adaptable, as you could see. Our process was fluid. We worked through each project. We refined all the methodologies. We adapted strategies to fit all of our unique organizational things and culture. The Lean Six Sigma methodology was really a great framework for us to use. We could use it. It was that solid foundation, and it's definitely scalable. It was easy for us to do it, to make for our team and make it work. We were not afraid of coloring outside the lines. We were not afraid of doing things a little different, that, either brainstorm or linear thinking, whichever worked for us. We use the tools and the framework to guide us. And one thing is, don't allow rigid adherence to a methodology to be a barrier to the progress. You just really don't want to be so rigid, but you do want to get everything on paper. Anything documented is better than nothing. Once you find what works for your organization, you can pursue the formal documentation later.
So as we close out our presentation today, we wanted to just take a minute to have you reflect on what stood out to you today about our presentation and why that feels important to you, and to really think about the now what. What next step can you take to apply something that you learned from us today to your work, or to take back to your organization, so that you can and start the process improvement journey for your organization, or add on to what you're currently doing there. So I think at this moment in time, we're going to go ahead and take the questions from the moderators. We would love to hear feedback from you, so our emails are there on the screen as well. But at this time, we're going to turn it over for question and answer.
Stacy and Darcy, you guys did such an amazing job. I think you explained everything so well that we just don't have any questions. If you don't mind, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask one myself. Just the fact that you highlight common sense and communication, that's just amazing. And I'm curious where you got your training for Six Sigma.
I got my yellow belt here at K-State. There we have a course. Gosh, Stacy, help me out. Is it a 3-day, 4?
2-day. The yellow belt was 2-day.
2-day for yellow belt. But it was here at K-State. It's an all-day, 2 full days of yellow belt training. It really brought a lot to light. Basically, the white belt, when I talked to one of the instructors, they said with all of the knowledge that we already had that white belt because we had gone through and we'd looked at these tools. A lot of this came from the expert in our area who really helped us. She brought a lot of this to light. So that kind of got us the preliminary white belt training. And then the yellow belt, we have the certification for that. And I'm looking forward to getting my green belt next.
Excellent. Yes. Is it in-house, all in-house training?
Well, it's not, it was a course at K-State. It's a conference. People come from all over. It wasn't just a K-State item. It is with our global campus. We offer that training, and we have it's actually I think he's a master black belt consultant that comes in and does this course for us. It's really intense and fun training to go through.
Awesome. I did have another question come in. Nancy Cunningham from Fort Hays asks, what tools have you used, such as Visio, etc.?
So yes, we have used Visio primarily. We use Excel. We have Office 365 and utilize the collaboration tools within it a lot as well. There are also, if you don't have access to Visio, there are lots of options out there for free tools. I've used Lucidchart, which is something you can do. There's a free version or a paid version, which gives you like the process mapping tools. Darcy, do you want to talk about Bizagi?
Yeah, we had Bizagi. It's Bizagi. It's a really cool tool. One of our people who's really good at this, he went in with a project that I was running, and it was a pretty large project group, but we went through every step and put a time on how long it took them to do this process. And you can go through the process, define all the time that it's used, and come up to find out how much time you're wasting actually on a project, or how much time it's being taken. We found one that we thought was just a small little, it's just a little thing that we were doing over here, but everybody complained about it. We put it through the Bizagi tool and found out that we were using 1.5 FTE per year on it, which was kind of eye-opening. So those tools are so important. Those are ones we found. Bizagi was great. We've used the fishbone diagram. So a lot of these are more like a fishbone diagram. You can go out and find one of those, and you get the head of your process, and then you write down all of the things that are around it. And there's many fishbone diagrams that you can use, and that's a Google that's a Google tool. You just go look it up and use the one that fits, because there's different types of them. So a lot of it, if you Google Lean Six Sigma tools, you'll see a bunch of them.
Great. Well, it looks like that's all of our questions at this time. I just want to thank you guys both so much for taking your time and giving us this great presentation. And to the attendees, thank you all and hope you have a great conference. Do you have any parting words for us?
Just keep thinking about process improvement. It's something, if you get into it, it's really great. And thank you to Emporia State for hosting this conference this year. You've done a lot in a short amount of time with everything that's happened. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.